I'm Josh Busby from the University of Texas at Austin. I previously served as a senior advisor for climate at the U.S. Department of Defense from 2021 to 2023. Our team just completed an online TTX on June 2nd, 2025. We had more than 40 people participate from government, the private sector, think tanks, the academic community, and the media. Our TTX was supported by the department under the Minerva Initiative and the DECUR Partnership. Our organizing team consisted of me, Emily Holland from the U.S. Naval War College, and Morgan Bazillion and Mark Dienert from the Colorado School of Mines. I wanted to describe the structure and outcome of our TTX. We held it over a 4.5-hour period on Monday, June 2nd. We provided a brief 2-page scenario on Sunday, June 1st to the participants. That scenario depicted a November 2025 situation which accentuates the current dynamic of trade tensions between the U.S. and China, and the trade tensions between the U.S. and key allies in North America and Europe, with low prices for metals, including lithium, a U.S. presence in DRC, and a minerals for security deal, but instability there as well as Mozambique, findings of new stray communication equipment from China and batteries, a ban on LFP tech transfer from China, alongside a loosening of Chinese graphite restrictions, but tighter restrictions on imports of gallium and germanium through third countries, and potential for BYD imports and manufacturing in Mexico and China, leading to a threat from President Trump to cancel the World Cup in 2026 that the three of them are hosting. So this was the scene in November 2025. We identified 5 different dimensions of national security associated with dependence on China for critical minerals and battery supply chains. In advance of the tabletop exercise, we commissioned 5 read-ahead memos from leading experts to talk about these dimensions, including Elisa Yoshiara from RAND on dual-use technologies, Colin Hendricks from the Peterson Institute for International Economics on China's capacity for coercion, Harry Kreischa from Carnegie Mellon on the risks of internet-connected clean technologies, Gracelyn Bhaskaran and Meredith Schwartz from CSIS on security spillovers from resource-rich countries, and a final one from me on the commanding heights and the challenges of having an economically vibrant clean technology sector. A team from RAN, led by Fabian Villalobos, also agreed to serve as the red team in the TTX. Now, in the exercise itself, after an opening session in which we introduced the scenario, the RAND Red team provided a short overview of their understanding of the state of the world. We then divided the participants into 5 working groups associated with each of those areas. One was facilitated by me on commanding heights, another by Emily on coercion, a third by Harry Kreischa on cyber, a fourth by former DoD official Greg Pollack on security spillovers, and a 5th by Ben Tolley, a former Air Force officer and current research assistant on the project. He led the session on dual-use technologies. Each working group was given a specific objective to maximize based on their issue. In the 45-minute working group, they were given the charge to identify and rank order policy options to address their issue set. They were asked to identify a person to present and defend those views in a first plenary session. And in that first plenary, each group presented their policy options in brief, followed by a discussion of the commonalities across groups and inconsistencies. We facilitated a consensus set of ideas that cut across groups, though here we could have used more time to really settle on a core set of policies. The policies we identified across groups included: 1, provide a flexible interpretation of foreign entity of concern rules that would encourage onshoring of production, but allow companies with modest China connections to be eligible for any tax credits that remain after IRA rules are modified. 2nd is to create a new sovereign wealth fund or other policies like enhanced XM or DFC capabilities or USG DoD procurement stockpiling to provide companies with resources to support the incremental costs of mining, research and development, processing, and manufacturing in the US compared to China. Now, this might include creative financing measures like contracts for differences, where governments would compensate mining processing companies if prices drop below a strike price, and if prices rise above a strike price, the government would keep the revenue. A third idea was to establish new partnerships with allies to source, process, and finance mining and clean technology, to pool demand and supply from outside of China for risk diversification. This might be through the Mineral Security Partnership or a new, perhaps more serious entity, and it could be a G7 type arrangement, plus countries like Australia, South Korea, Argentina, and Chile, and perhaps others. The fourth was establish a focal point in the executive branch for coordinating minerals-related efforts across the government. In the 30-minute session that followed, the Red Group developed their consolidated strategy for how China would respond to this set of policies. At the beginning of the second plenary, the Red team provided a brief overview of their strategy, which they would implement in mid-2026. Their move included both an information strategy for how they would frame their efforts, as well as a series of practical steps that would defend Chinese interests in their view of the world vis-a-vis other countries to make their offer of collaboration more attractive to them. Red also identified some specific areas that would potentially undercut U.S. moves, where China possesses leverage over both the U.S. and other countries through both information technology linkages and international debt holdings. In the final plenary, the group grappled with how to fashion a coherent response to the Red strategy. The group was split, though, into two emerging positions. One that the current administration appears to be embracing, which is an effort to disengage from clean technology entirely as a means of delinking from an area in which China dominates. If one assumes that a potential conflict with China is imminent, then from this position, any minerals U.S. requires or acquires need to be stockpiled with a view towards that coming conflict scenario, rather than dedicated towards clean energy. And at the same time, this high conflict potential underscores the need for more rapid decoupling from China. The other position took the view that the electrification of more parts of the economy through renewables and battery storage and electric vehicles was structurally inevitable and would have transformative effects that the U.S. could not ignore. The minerals that the U.S. needs for defense purposes mostly can only be obtained if demand for civilian side activities associated with clean technologies are also supported, with defense applications being able to piggyback on civilian demand. At the same time, China's capabilities in this space mean that the U.S. cannot build its own manufacturing capability at home without reliance on some Chinese inputs. We did not have time to reconcile these two positions, but this cleavage mirrors some of the splits apparent in U.S. society. We closed in a short 15-minute wash in which we processed whether or not China's apparent hand and advantage in this space were as strong as the group perceived, or if we too blithely accepted the strength of their leverage based on the coherence of Red's presentation. Some participants identified domestic weaknesses in China's own economy and how traditional U.S. allies in North America and Europe will not necessarily find appeals for a new order led by China to be all that attractive. Hope you take advantage of the scenario that we'll post along with this video, as well as the read ahead papers. Thank you.